Good morning, everybody. I have wanted to start a project, and I actually started it back when I had trouble with my computer, and I'm going to have to redo it because the videos were corrupted and lost. So I am going to start altering this Reader's Digest condensed book. It's going to have a theme. I've decided that the theme will be birds and blooms. I thought it would be fun to do that, and I thought I would, since I was going to do it, I might as well come on and show you what I'm going to do. Now there is another artist on YouTube that does a lot of altered books, and she's fabulous to watch. It's Lori Marie. Anyways, I'll make sure that there's a link to her channel in the description, so do make sure to check that out. She does some great altered books. I'm sure that and there's a few other people that do some great things. I'll try to put several links down below. Anyways, I'm just going to show you. I'm just going to work through this book with you and try to show you what I'm doing as I'm doing it, and hopefully you'll enjoy watching this process. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get rid of some pages, and Reader's Digest books are interesting in that they have signatures, but they're I'm not sure about what they're all glued in. So what we're going to do is we're going to hunt the closest we can find to a signature, and then we're going to tear out several pages. And to tear out pages, I just come in here, and I've already torn several out so that you don't have to watch me do that. And you tear out the pages like so. Okay, now save these because we're going to want them. But once I've got these pages torn out, we need to put several pages together, and I like to put, with these books, the paper is really nice, and you do want to try to get a book that does not have that is not so brittle that it breaks. So if you can bend a page and it doesn't break, you should be fine. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick some wax paper in between the other two pages, and if you have torn pages out, you definitely want to make sure that that is two pages that you glue together. These torn pieces right here, we want to make sure we seal that. So I am going to stick this in there so that I may have to weight that so that it stays open. And I'm going to use Mod Podge. Now, you could use matte medium to put these pages together, but Mod Podge works, and it is a lot less expensive. It's like I said, I think I'm going to try to put some weight on this book. There we go. These are just to add some weight so it'll stay open for me. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my Mod Podge and a brush, and I want to make sure on this one where I've torn the pages out that I get a good amount of Mod Podge down in where I've torn the pages out. What I'm doing is kind of sealing those pages back in. And then I'm just gonna get a good layer of Mod Podge all over this. And I'm going to put this page down and work it out from the center out. Now I just had that card. Where did it go? Oh well, doesn't matter. We're just gonna squish it out like so. One of the things Lori Marie does is close her book. And where you've torn the pages out, there are still sometimes it's sort of a bump in there. And you just have to live with that. It's not something we're going to worry about. It's just a matter of making this page thicker and sturdier for our project. So we're going to go on and we're going to put several more sets of pages together. Let's see, let's do those two. Unfortunately, I'm going to lose a couple of really nice pictures in there. Let's take this one out. And again, because I've torn that one out, we want to make sure we get our Mod Podge down in that crack where the page has been torn out so that it sort of seals that page in. And I'm using wax paper so that I don't have to be perfectly neat and then I don't get all of my pages covered with Mod Podge. Just open it back up and make sure that my two pages have gone together nice and neat and nice and snug. Take my card. Now, for this particular next step that we're doing, I need 4 pages that are doubled together. So I want you to put, I'm going to go ahead and do 2 more pages. And you notice I'm getting out clean wax paper every time. The reason for that is that I don't want to get that Mod Podge until it dries. I can reuse those sheets, but they have to be dry. So well, this is a very nice image too, so we'll just take that one out. As you work through your book, you definitely have to have some pages taken out because we're going to add a lot of bulk to this. Like I said, there are lots of people on YouTube that make some beautiful books, and I will definitely try to make sure I've got. But look at this book, isn't it beautiful? The way the edges have aged. We're going to do one more so that we have a set. We have 4 pages in a row that are all Mod Podge together. Now then, we've got 4 pages that we have doubled the pages on, where we have 2 pages Mod Podge together, so that we have 4 sturdier pages. Now, because the book can get quite moist with all the things that we want to do, we're going to set this aside and let it get dry. And then I will be back in a little while after it dries and to show you what the next steps are. Okay, our pages in our book are now dry enough to go on. They may not be completely dry, but they're plenty dry enough to work the next step. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a 2-pocket kind of spread here on these 2 pages. I want to do sort of an angled pocket to the outside. It's not one of those things that I'm worrying about being exact on, but I'm going to try to make 2 pockets that are roughly the same depth on here. So I am going to take a pencil and just make a little mark. Oops. And I should, I guess, make sure you understand that we have 2 pages on this side and 2 pages on this side, and these are the doubled stuck together pages. So now I don't want this to go all the way to the top, so I'm going to make sure you only grab hold of 1 page. I have this ruler here because I'm going to use it to pull up until I get to the center and then rip out my middle. And there again, you want to hold on to these because we'll probably do something with them. And again, I'm going to come back over here. Going to get it roughly to this center piece too. And I'm going to make sure I only get my top page. And the centers are not near as dry because I put quite a bit of Mod Podge in there. And now I got that done, and I think it's a little deep. So I think I'm going to go back in and tear it up a little bit higher. I just, you know, you do something and then you look at it and you go, not deep enough. So that's way better. I like this much better. I'll give you a measurement in just a minute. This clip that I'm using to hold my book down's in the way. And I just took off, you know, it's visual for me. I don't do a lot of measuring, but there we go. Now then, the side over here is about 3 1/4, and the center is about 5 1/4, roughly. So now we have 2 angled pages that is going to make our pockets. We're going to end up with pockets right here. But I want to decorate these pages before I go any further. And I had a napkin a minute ago. Oh, there it is, hiding underneath. And this is just a pretty bird napkin that I have, and I've been using. Now, when you use a napkin for collage, you always want to separate the layers. And sometimes it's a little hard getting them started. And make sure you save these layers. There's always things you can do with them. And this napkin only has 2 layers, so it's pretty good. Now, The thing is that we want to decorate this part of the page, and then we'll decorate this part of the page. So we want to work on this back, sort of back piece first. And we kind of have to decide what we want to show. Okay. And remember that down here is not going to show, so it's not real important. We just want to make sure that we're well into our pocket. And I kind of like this, so I'm going to, now I have a water brush and the brush is wet, and I am just gonna do a little drawing with water right here. Just help me to tear this a little easier. Okay. Now, as you can see, it doesn't cover the entire page, but it does give me some of my bird, and then it's tucked underneath the pocket. So that's the piece we're going to use on this side. Now we want a piece for over here. And this time I think we'll not put a bird over there, so we're going to just use this. Oops, and I got it good and wet now. There we go. Now, I may want a little more than just that piece. If you see how it goes underneath, it's not really filling up my space. I want to fill up my space just a little more under there. Okay, so oops, I'm off camera, sorry. I'm just tearing it up in pieces here now so that I can see what I want for my different layers. Okay. Okay. Alrighty, now that looks pretty good. We'll just tear this piece off right here. And I might put this piece in underneath this piece over here, like so, just to add a little bit more of the green. So now I'm going to get rid of this hard edge. And this is what we've got it sort of looking like. And remember that the napkin is going to sort of get in clear, and the book page will come through from behind it. So we're going to work on those two pages first, and we're going to want to bring this one over here for right now. Pull that out of the way. And we got to get out our Mod Podge, and again, you could use matte medium or some other glue that you like to do this with, but Mod Podge is my go-to. And to put down a napkin, you don't need a lot of Mod Podge. It's just a small layer, and then you want to go over the top of it, and it is probably going to wrinkle, so you know, just go with the flow and let it wrinkle a little bit. It's not a big deal. we've got this piece we want to put right in there. And it just adds a little color there. Then we need a little further down here. Oops, we want that hard edge to be off so that I can get rid of it later. There we go. Okay. Now what we don't want to do is allow this pocket piece to touch our other piece. So for the moment, I'm just going to fold this in here, tuck it down, letting this piece move over here, and we're going to put these two pieces down. Like I said, you don't need a ton of Mod Podge. It's just a thin layer with a napkin. It has a nice, there we go. You do want to make sure you coat both the top and the bottom though, so that it gets that lovely translucent look. Pull that out there. Now you can put as many layers of things onto this as you want. I am going to start with this. We'll see where it goes. Okay, and that is our first layer. Now we need to let this dry again due to the fact that we've got, and oh dear, that sometimes happens. So, okay, so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to make sure that these stand up. And we get this back down. Okay, now, like I said, we want to let this dry. We'll decorate these two pages after we let this dry a little bit. I'll pull this paper out so the wax paper can dry. And it doesn't stick to the book page. Now if you're worried about it, stick something underneath it like so. I have these little clips, but bulldog clips or something like that work very nicely. You can pin them like this and then the pages don't stick together. There you go. So now we're going to just set this aside and I'll be back in a little while to do the next step. Okay, our first layer of napkin collage is pretty dry. It's not perfectly dry, but it's pretty dry. And I'm just going to tear off these extra little bits that are along the edge. You could use your scissors if you wanted to. I kind of like the torn edge, so I'm just going to work at tearing them off. Now they get a little sturdier when you've got Mod Podge on them, so you know, don't be careful because you don't want to tear up your page. But there we go. Now this got a little darker than I would have liked. It's not a big deal. It still gives my page a little bit of texture and look to it. But now we're going to work on this part of the pocket. And you know, we didn't do a lot to down here or down here because we're going to put these as pockets. So again, I want to protect my underpage from the Mod Podge. So I'm going to get it in here with some wax paper, sorry. And I want to get in here with some wax paper. And again, I'm using Mod Podge as my adhesive. Excuse me. Now I did go ahead and I kind of got my napkins all ready to go here so that I don't have to waste your time watching me tear a napkin out. So I'm just going to put a layer of Mod Podge down. Now the way this page is curling up, you want to be a little careful that it's not going to, that you're not getting Mod Podge all on the back side of the page. And remember, you want to go over the top of your napkin once you get it on there. That makes the napkin more transparent, translucent, however you want to look at it. And again, I like the wrinkles, so it doesn't bother me that it gets a little wrinkly. And I have another little piece I want to put in over here. Somewhere I have it. There we go. Nope, this one. Yeah, it curled all up. And I'm just kind of using my brush to push it down into the Mod Podge. And I have a little tiny itty bitty piece or two that I was going to just put in up here just to add a little color up in there. Okay, that's that side. Let's see here. I had this the other way around. Yeah, there we go. This time I want to put this back piece in first, just simply because it's easier to get down in the crease with the back piece first. There we go. And I have this cute little bird that I'm putting out here. You definitely want to make sure you get a layer of Mod Podge over the top. There was a little bubble of air underneath the napkin. Okay. And then, as I always do, I get rid of these because there is Mod Podge on them and you don't want them sticking to your page. Now I am getting a little bit on the back, so I'm just going to tuck these clips under there. Keep the pages separate. Anything that you put under there, you could just put an ink pen or something just to keep the pages from touching one another too much. And I'm just going to set it aside again and let it dry. I'll be back in a little while and show you what the next step is. Okay, everybody, this is not totally dry by any means. It's still quite damp. I'll probably tuck something in here just to keep it open later, but we're gonna go on to the next step, and then we'll have to really let it get dry, because once we don't want to close the book until these get pretty dry. And I'm just trimming off the excess, and there's some right there. Oh, that's... Now then, we've got the book quite damp here in the center. It's fine, but we just don't want to be closing it too much like that and leaving it that way. The book pages will have to be allowed to dry once I get these stuck together, and I don't want to go on after that. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to ink all the edges of all this paper, and you want to ink the edges, and I just ink the edges because it gives it more definition, but you want to make sure you get these edges inked especially before you go on, because if you don't, it's going to be really hard to ink them. So we're just gonna get some, and it just gives it definition. You see? It shows you where your little edge is. And it ages the book even more than it was before. That just added so much to the page already. Now this is Gathered Twigs Distress Ink. It's just a nice, pretty brown. You can see it's still damp right there. These are definitely not dry. Now that part of the page, if you don't get enough ink on it, you can come back later and ink it. Those pages up there were already pretty inky, or pretty inky, pretty aged. I overstepped it a little bit with, there we go. Okay, now the nice thing about this is these are velcroed on here, and they store very nicely on the bottom of these little tiny ink pads. Okay, so the next step is to actually turn these into pockets. And to do that, I'm going to do two things. I happen to like to use double-sided tape, this red line tape or score tape, one of the tapes. But the pocket, if it has the tape on it, sometimes when you stick a tag in there, it might stick to it. So your other option is to glue. But what I like to do is to use tape and glue. So what I'm going to do, let's go across right here, just as close to the edge as I can without having my tape stick out. And I need to have a pencil. Of course I don't have a pencil. There we go. And I need to know where my top line is. It's right there. just run up the page. And you can use a card or your fingernail. What you want to do is make sure this tape is tucked down very well. The hard part about double-sided tape is getting the edge of it started. So what I'm going to do is use my pokey tool, and see, it's not stuck down very well in there. We'll try it out here. There we go. Okay, so the tape, we want to get the tape started. Once we've got our tape started, both directions, we're not going to lift it just yet. We're going to leave it there, just a little loose. Sometimes it helps if you fold it back. I did not, and now it's decided to, there. Okay, so now both of them are started. Okay, now I'm going to take this Mono Tombow Mono liquid glue. It's called Aqua, and I'm going to use the tiny little pin tip, and I'm going to draw one line of glue. And one of the reasons I like this glue is you can get just a tiny little line of glue. And the reason for that tiny little line of glue is that when the page dries, that line of glue will keep your tag from sliding down and getting stuck in the tape. So now we're going to peel off our little pieces of tape, and we're going to take our page pocket and we're going to lay it down. And the other thing is that the sticky tape will help to keep it flat so the glue will dry. And like I said, I'm going to take this piece of wax paper and just tuck it in there. Maybe I'll fold it one more time. And that just gives it just opens it up a little bit so that it doesn't stick back there. Now we're going to turn this around and we're going to do the same thing over here. I need to know where I sort of can tell because of the ink. One thing I dislike about this red tape is that it's the piece you peel off is always very hard to get thrown in the trash can. It wants to attach itself to you for some reason. Okay. Got it a little long right there, so we're just clipping it off. Okay. I think if I turn it upside down, it will be easier to work on. And I know this video is kind of long. They probably will be. These pages are going to take a little bit of time to both accomplish and dry. So, okay. Now once again, we're going to lift the edge out here. Make sure we got it stuck down good and fold it back. this is the disadvantage of double stick tape. And of course, it would have come right up had you not been watching. But because you were watching, it didn't want to come up. Again, I'm going to use my glue and put just a single little line of glue all the way along there. Peel off these and open my little pocket back up. Now that didn't want to pull out. There we go. Okay. Push it down real well. I need a little piece of wax paper. And again, I'm going to fold up this piece of wax paper and just tuck it in there. The idea behind the tucking it in there is just to keep it opened up a little bit so until it dries. Okay, now when I come back, we're going to add some embellishments to this page. But for now, we have to let it dry completely, because until it dries completely, we don't want to keep building on it. We need to let it dry, and so I'll come back and embellish this page later on and finish out the video. All right, we have our pockets all glued together and our pages are nice and dry. So now what we're going to do is we're going to finish up and just add a few embellishments to the pages so that I will call it finished. I have some eyelash trim pieces. I have this bird book that I've torn some pages out of to work with. I have a dictionary. I actually have another dictionary. I have some old book page and some music paper. Of course, I've got my distress ink. Let's get our little thing on here. And this aqua glue. So we're going to create just a little bit of embellishment for the pages, and let's just get to it. I've already torn out a couple of things out of the dictionary. This one says bird and bird's eye. This one says song. So I need to trim them up a little bit closer, and by trimming them up a little bit closer, I mean I'm going to tear them a little bit closer. Right above song is sonata, so I think I'll leave that. Okay. Now, one of the things I want you to be aware of is that if we decorate the tops of the page, then that won't show when we put in our tags. Let me get one here and show you. See, putting the tag in sort of covers up anything on the top of the page. We still want it to be pretty, but we don't need it to be real fancy right this minute. So, because the tag is going to dress it up. I am going to put some of this eyelash trim, and I want it to be just on the edge of here, but I'm going to let it stick out. I want it to stick out of the book a little bit, so I'm using the fine tip on my mono liquid glue, and I am just going to run a single bead of glue all the way up this page. I'm about not a full 1/4 of an inch in. This eyelash trim is about, and I decided it needs a little more glue, so maybe more like 2 beads of glue. And then I am just going to lay this on the edge there, but I'm going to lay it so that it kind of sticks out of the book. Okay. It's got a twist in it right there, so it doesn't want to lay down flat. There we go. You just need to get it into the glue, and I've left it a little bit long at the top, and I'm going to leave it a little bit long at the bottom. I can trim it off later. And you see it's going to stick out of the book a little bit. Okay, let's get this big piece off of here so that's out of the way. And then I think I'm going to run another little piece over here along the edge of my pocket, just a hair in from the edge of the pocket, right in there. Just to dress this side up a little bit. And again, I'm just using a couple of little tiny lines of the glue. All right. Okay. Let's get rid of some extra. There we go. Now, I noticed I had this nice little bird picture, and I think I'm going to cut it out just as a whole piece. I mean, just not tear it, cut it sort of as a framed kind of thing. Right, and I'm going to see if it'll take the ink and darken up the edge of it just a little bit. This type of paper is pretty glossy, so it's not showing up real well. I have another option in a few minutes, so we'll try something different after I stick it down. I am going to glue it to a piece of the old book paper that I have. Let's set this aside a little bit so I have some room. Can you see? Yep. Now you could use glue stick or any other adhesive that you want to use. I'm just using this because it was sitting right there. And now let's get rid of some of this excess. Oh, that just fell apart. There we go. Sort of made our own little embellishment. And I have a Stabilo pencil, which I really need to sharpen, I guess. But because I couldn't get the ink to go around my paper, we're just going to go around it with the Stabilo pencil. I do have to get my pencil sharpener. And I'm just going to darken that up, spread it out a little. And now we'll ink these edges. And now we have sort of a little embellishment to go on there. And I want to use this one is the one that says bird. Okay. There's my other one that says song. Besides aging the edges, it kind of makes your piece stand out just a little bit. And I had some, yes I do. Now I don't want the words on this, I just want the music. A handy dandy little paper tearer. This handy dandy little paper tearer, by the way, is a wax paper box. The little piece from the wax paper box. I just saved it. Okay. I always have to think about placement of things a little bit. It's not one of those things that just happens. I have to think about it. Okay. We don't want this piece to be all white, so we'll have to do its little edges too. Okay. I believe that will do for that side. Oh, my glue is almost gone. Now this book page that I used behind the bird came from another book. You could use the pages we took out earlier to give the book some space. I just happen to have these in my little pile, so this is what I'm using. Okay. Now we aren't going to be able to close the book right away because this trim is liable to let the pages stick together. We'll have to let it get dry. And I'm not going totally out to the edge on my papers, partially because I like the fact that they have a little bit of depth to them and are being raised up a little bit. Okay. Now this needs a little something to go with it. I might just do that, put that under there. Still might not be quite what I want. Let's start with that though. I think I'll put the glue on here. Okay. There we go. Now, I think it needs a little bit something more, so I'm going to, I have these two little bird heads that I had already stuck down. I was working on the tags, which, by the way, I'll be making a separate video on how I make the tags. But I think that I'm going to add that right in there. I think I like this one a little bit better though. Okay, so I need to ink up its edges. put it right there. Yep. Okay. Sorry, I keep worrying I'm going to go off camera for you. Don't mean to. There we go. Now, this is, okay, didn't stick very well. This is a little plain up here, and I know that. Like I said, it's going to kind of get covered up by the tags when you stick the tags in, but at the same time, when you have the tags out, you kind of want to have some visual thing up there. So what I'm going to do is get another piece of my music and do something, I think, up there with it. I may do a couple of pieces. Okay, doesn't want to tear very well, so we'll just go in here and get rid of it. For as thin as this paper is, it is very strong. Okay. Okay. I might just put this little bird over the top of those. Like so. Yep. Okay, they all need to be inked. Oh, and again, I think I told you earlier, but this is gathered twigs. Just a pretty brown. There's a lot of pretty browns. Now, one of the things when using glue that you want to remember is that we put Mod Podge all over this these pages, and so you need an adhesive for your elements, ephemera that you're adding, that is going to stick to the Mod Podge. So that's one of the things you want to consider if you're trying to use a glue stick, that it might not stay stuck very well. Now we have our other little bird head. Now I'm going to stick a piece of wax paper in there and close the book real hard. And lean on it real good. Try to make sure that everything is stuck down. I have a couple of things lifting up in places I don't want them to lift up, like this piece of paper right here. And so I'm going to get a little more glue on it right along the edge. That still does not want to stay down, so we're just gonna little glue there. Okay, let's try that again. Okay. Now then, I want to trip off these. Little extra pieces, and we have finished a double pocket page that our tags will go into, just like so. I'm not going to run it past it. It could go in this one too, but I don't want to take a chance of messing that up right there. So remember, I'm going to do another video on making these tags, and we'll be altering this book further. We are going to use a theme of birds and blooms. Anyways, great. Thank you for coming today, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon. Now go start your book.